Which show starts as a 10-10 but ends as a 1-10? I don't know that it started as a 10-10, but Weeds absolutely collapsed after about the third season and somehow kept going. I absolutely loved Blacklist. I could watch James Spader in his element all day, but as the seasons went on I could no longer tolerate the character of Elizabeth Keene and the constant flip-flopping of whether Reddington is her father or not. It got so old. House of Cards edit the US version. Once Upon a Time. It should have stopped after season 3-4. They starting doing too much and I could barely finish the show. I had to force myself to sit and watch till the end of each episode. Also, Belle and Rumpelstiltskin's relationship made me uncomfortable. I didn't like it at all. They should have stopped after the Peter Pan arc IMO. I loved the first season of Heroes, but it declined drastically to the point I stopped watching pretty abruptly. Once Upon a Time. I loved the first 2 seasons, but literally couldn't watch after that. Grey's Anatomy, and it's not even done. LOL. Edit in my opinion should have ended when Christina left, but even if not then, definitely should have ended when Derek died. That 70s show. Once Eric left for Africa, everything fell apart. This show was a staple in my house. We would all watch the new episodes when they came out, which I feel was on Sunday night before school. Under the Dome. Killing Eve. S1 and S2 were divine. S3 was kinda okay, but was all over the place. S4 had its moments, but was ultimately just pure shit. American Horror Story, the beginning seasons were so good, but over the last few seasons has fallen drastically. Pretty Little Liars. The Arrowverse. I think it's safe to say Riverdale went south after season 1. Heroes. That first season is incredible. By the time the Caravan Circus people show up, it's unwatchable. Designated Survivor? Westworld. Besides from Game of Thrones, you mean? Ragnarok. I waited forever for that last season to come out, and it was a complete bust. I really like Manifest, but after it just got too repetitive. Once Upon a Time. Clever original first season with unique characters based on classic fairy tales in a world without magic or any knowledge of their real background. It should have ended with its second season. There was clearly a decline in quality, but it added a neat spin by including magic. It spiraled hard after that and somehow had a spin-off where it just became a Disney-verse that lost sense of the plot. The Walking Dead. True Blood SMH. Misfits. The first 2 seasons were top tier. Then it completely fell apart. Sliders. It was going downhill in the 3rd season, but after it went to a different producer it just tanked. Nobody has said Shameless US version yet. After years of repetitive plots and the characters becoming more and more intolerable every year, I realized I was just hate watching at the end. I took Emmy Rossum's departure as my opportunity to give up. True Blood. The first 2 seasons were amazing, and then it began a slow but steady decline into what the fuck territory. How to Get Away with Murder. I've got to say, because I haven't seen it mentioned yet. Vikings. Seasons 1-3 with Ragnar were great, then it got more like a soap opera where they bring in over-the-top characters just to kill them off. It was more like a low-budget hair product advertisement by the end. The Goldbergs. It started out as such a funny show, especially for those of us that grew up in the 80s. It should have ended a couple seasons before it did. It was nearly unwatchable at then end. Nip Tuck. Starts pretty strong. Lil medical drama revolving around plastic surgery and the main character's narcissistic tendencies. Good stuff. The last couple of seasons though. Oh man. That's some rough-ass TV to watch. It's so bad the jump the shark moment, depending on who you ask, involves a woman cheating on her husband with their dog and the husband killing the dog. Like, who TF writes that? Dexter? Sons of Anarchy. Could have been a couple seasons shorter and ended better. Orange is the New Black. I wouldn't say it's a 1, but Kim Possible's last season was clearly a mishmash of ideas scrambled together last minute. They knew they were cancelled, so they put a nice little bow on the series. The final season, they had to start a whole slew of new arcs and plots that also had to wrap up that season. Also Code Lyoko. Altered Carbon. Prison Break. I wouldn't say it was ever a 10, but the iZombie series finale was a horrible mess. The Witcher started with a 10/10 actor and will end as a 1/10 show. Game of Motherfucking Thrones, also Dexter, especially if you read the books, the show goes on its own stupid tangents. Scrubs, if we count S9. I don't actually hate S9, but it just doesn't hold up as a continuation of Scrubs, especially after the very good ending in S8. Misfits, for me. The first season was a trip, the second season had some good stuff, but once they start swapping powers and killing at will, the whole thing loses its appeal. Castle. It should have ended after season 6. Suits. Arrested Development. 3 fire seasons, a mediocre 4th, and a 5th that is worth the trouble. BBC Sherlock began as a very fun Sherlock adaptation in modern London and then promptly missed the landing and hit hell by finishing off the last season with Sherlock's secret sister killing off one of the only likable female characters and then putting everyone in a sore trap. Also, she's basically psychic and plays violin. Never seen a show shoot itself so hard in the foot before. Most of them. My choice is Misfits. After they expelled Nathan, it went spiraling downwards. The Umbrella Academy. I'm gonna venture back to the 90s and say ER. It was really great until it started to try competing with Grey's Anatomy and turned into more of a soap opera. Game of Thrones was legit on course to be the greatest thing ever put to film and likely would have remained that way until the sun burned out. Then they went past the books and had to start writing their own shit. Heroes, The 100, Grey's Anatomy, even though it's somehow still on. Chuck. It's still one of my favorite shows, but it was the kind of show that every year didn't know if they were getting cancelled. From what I remember, the end of season 4 was supposed to be the end, but they unexpectedly got picked up for season 5, which felt different, although still okay, but the ending really could have been much better. They seemed to rush a plan when they should have let it go. Don't know if anyone else said this, but X-Files, what's the point of X-Files with no Mulder or Scully? Designated Survivor. First few episodes had me hooked, but it slowly went from average quality a season into absolutely trash when Netflix took it over. Gilmore Girls. A year in the life never needed to happen, it was perfect as it was. Firefly. First season was amazing. After that, nothing. How I Met Your Mother, the finale is so bad that it almost seems intentional. Dexter? Pretty Little Liars, the way it ended was straight up insulting to everyone who spent years loyally watching that show. Might get hate, but Modern Family. Hated how the Dunphy kids ended up. Falling Skies. Started out as a gritty alien invasion show. Totally jumped the shark in the final seasons. The Man in the High Castle. Arrested Development. What a shame. Orange is the New Black started off well and just went to shit. I really loved the first season of Preacher, but it wasn't the same with season 2 and then went to crap by the finish. We may never see the end of it, but The Simpsons. Lucifer. That last season was atrocious. Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, How I Met Your Mother, Sons of Anarchy. Did I mention Game of Thrones?